So we'll stand away from that mic and speak nice and loudly for all of you. As you see, there was a hymn in the bulletin. We're not going to do that. And I want to point one other thing out, and maybe you can help me. Never in the last, 25 years has my wedding band come off my finger. But it's on my cross today. I got a rash underneath the ring. Have you ever had such a thing happen? It's painful as all what get out. So if you know how to fix that, please let me know. And so my wife can see the ring back on my finger again, okay? Well, friends, the question is presented to Jesus. The guy comes up to Jesus and says, "What must I do to inherit eternal life? What must I do?" Okay? So that's the whole basis of today's dialogue with one of you, with all of you. So, I talked earlier about the kids and such. That phrase, draw a line. Where have you heard that phrase used? Have you ever heard that phrase used on the national level? Remember back in the Gulf War? A line in the sand, right? We would draw a line in the sand. What other ways? Rick? Cuba thing. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yes, Ted? Syria. Syria. Wow, coming up with all these war analogies, too. How about just the simple phrase? You'll be talking about something and you're being asked to do this, that, and the other thing, and then all of a sudden you go, "But that's where I draw a line." Okay? Can any of you remember what that line was about? Anybody? Can you ever think of one of those times when you said, "But that's where I draw a line"? Michael? Basically not looking the other way?
Like most other things, how it's to see others some rowdy behavior.
Okay. Good.
It's better off more, but then when there's things that don't seem right, or if I hear a certain word, it's that's right.
Right. Exactly. Good. So, that's where I draw the line. And that's, I think, a thing that, as I said, I was going to ask the kids about drawing a line. So one other interesting thing about this is that this poor fellow sets himself up, does he not? He says all these things. What he's doing is he's asking for a prescription. It's like he's going to the doctor and he says, "What do I do?" Right? And when you go to the doctor and you ask the doctor, "What do I do?" what happens? Simple, right? You do what the doctor tells you to do, right? Usually, right? You go to a surgeon, you know what they're going to do, right? You ever heard about that? If you go to a surgeon, you know what they're going to do. They're going to cut you, all right? So this guy, he's asking for a prescription. He says, "Just tell me." Have you ever said that before? In spiritual matters? Have you ever been on your knees or figuratively on your knees and you say, "God, just tell me what to do," right? It's a moment of desperation. It's a moment of question. It's a moment of, why does this have to be so hard? Just tell me what to do. And we know that sometimes there are some churches that will be more than happy to tell you what to do. Would you settle for that? Do you want me to tell you what to do? Sometimes. Okay. Probably not, though. That's the interesting thing, what to do. So what do you think with this guy? Do you think Jesus was going to do that? He was going to say, "Okay, rich guy." Well, he did. But that's the problem. When you ask for something very specific, what do I do? I've done, what did he say? Do you know that list? I haven't murdered anybody. I haven't cheated on my spouse. I have not stolen. I have not lied. Ha. I have not defrauded anyone. And I honored my mother and my father. What else do you want from me? He said, what must I do? And Jesus doesn't quite answer him at first. Do you remember the answer Jesus gave him at first? He says, you lack one thing. Interesting. You lack one thing. What do you think the man is lacking? If he hasn't murdered anyone, he hasn't stolen, he hasn't cheated on his spouse, he asks what to do, and Jesus answers him with something bizarre. He says, you lack one thing. What do you think he was lacking? What did Jesus end up telling him to do first? What did he do? Sell all his belongings and give it to the poor, and then come follow me. Okay? So he eventually gives him that answer. But he is lacking something. What is he lacking? Common sense? David? Faith. Ooh. That was a good answer in church, pretty much, right? Was he lacking faith? Was he lacking, what? Creativity? Was he, in fact, lacking the one thing, maybe, that ensures your way into eternal life? Poverty or something like that? Isn't that what he was asking him to do? Right? Was he not asking him to do that? He told him to sell everything he had. He was a rich guy. Give the money to the poor. So what is going to happen if you do that, please? What's that? You're poor. So is that Jesus' answer? Come on, tell me. Is that what you think Jesus wanted him to experience? There's some no's. Okay? Any clue, then, what Jesus wanted him to experience, then? If it wasn't poverty or poorness. What's that? Compassion. What else? See? Understanding. Empathy. Helping others. David? What's that? Basic life? Ooh, interesting, yes. What else was Jesus asking him? Huh? Sacrifice. Jesus was asking him to sacrifice. Did he really give up anything when he did not murder anyone? Did he really give up something when he didn't steal from someone? Was he giving up something when he did not cheat on his spouse? Maybe. Woo! This is a tough crowd here. Did he give up something when he honored his mother and his father? Interesting, exactly. Jesus wasn't specifically not giving up something. In all those things that he was doing, all these things that are wondrous things, they were the commandments, they were the basis of the faith. Right? Like the 10 Commandments, basically. The man said, I follow them. What on earth else do you want me to do? And Jesus, as you have supplied the answer, Jesus basically is asking him to offer up his compassion, his faith, his want and need and hope to help others. It wasn't about following the rules, in other words. Because, there are plenty of rules that are made, but a lot of them sometimes have nothing to do with treating somebody else well. Right? Or good, treating them good. Okay? So Jesus says, you lack one thing. And some of the answers we've gotten here are, you are lacking compassion. I don't know how he knew that. But obviously, the man had wealth, and wealth. And we don't read it in this gospel, But in another gospel, it's put the same story comes up, and he went away. He was frustrated, right? Okay. So I ask of you then, if Jesus wants this man to relate to those who they would serve, in other words, know what it means to be poor, okay, is that the one thing we must all do? Is it all or nothing? This is where the rubber meets the road, friends. Is it all or nothing? Remember, this is stewardship time. Well, is it all or nothing? No? How come? Ooh, interesting. So things aren't necessarily black and white, right or wrong, up or down. So if you are not going to sell all that you own and give it to the poor and follow Jesus, where's the medium? Where's the place that you think you're going to draw your line? I know this is a tough question. I know this is a very difficult question. Where do we draw our line? Where do we not go out with our crazy glasses? Where do I go? How far am I going to go to let Jesus know that I love him? Cheryl, did you have something? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, then, does it mean that just some of us need more to care for ourselves than others? David? Mm-hmm. Of course. But where is the line drawn? It's not the same for everyone. Who gets to decide that? The self? The individual? Did the hand go up there, Jeff? Almost. What do you think, Jeff? What do you think? Who makes that decision? This is his first seminary test.
I think you made that decision in prayer and with God. It's not black and white, like you said. There is no line, right? Or if there is line, you don't draw it on your own. Make that decision in prayer with God.
Did you get that? He said you need to make that decision with God in prayer and in meditation, that you do not draw that line for yourself. I don't know. So I don't know. When you, I'm going to get right brass tacks here. I'm going to come right down to it, okay? Like I said, it's stewardship season. So when you decide how you're going to pledge to the church, how do you do it? David. Pray. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Dorothy.
Hi, Dorothy. Welcome.
We're a little late, we couldn't find our way. But I personally think that there are many ways to help a church. I think through your volunteer, through many other ways. If you don't have money, I think there are other things you do. And you can always find a way to finance someone to help other people together.
Exactly.
It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder when you're not a lot of people, and it's better than actually.
Right? So our guest Dorothy says, not all people have the money. They can give in a different way. They can give in a different way. I think the problem lies is when you do have a lot of money and you say, oh no, I'm giving of my time. I'm going to be honest with you about that. Okay? I'll be honest with you about that. I'm going to be hard-hitting with that. Alrighty? Was there a hand in the back there? Rick, did you have something else to share? Rick's going to rebuild. Well, he is doing that. Thank goodness. He is doing that. So I think we've found here that there is this, it's not an all or nothing kind of deal. It is dependent upon each individual person. But that's the interesting thing. The guy, here's the deal. The guy asks directly to somebody else, to Jesus, says, what must I do? Okay, I'm going to tell you. And so he gets that kind of answer. Prayer, meditation, reflection, humility, reality, perspective, maybe even sometimes gathering a different perspective. I don't know, maybe you just pick a number out of your head at some time. I don't know. Maybe it has to be more deep. About not just giving to your church, but how about letting people know that your life has been changed because you have a closer relationship with God? How many people are actually willing to talk about that? It's becoming a skill and a gift that more and more people are not exercising. They aren't talking about their faith. They aren't talking about how much Jesus or God or the church or somebody who's close to them and who has helped them and done wonderful things. We aren't talking about that stuff. Why not? Is it old-fashioned or something? I think we need perhaps to draw that line a little even closer to ourselves. So if it's not about money, it's about time. If it's not about time being given, then maybe it's our heart. That as Cheryl and Millicent had said, maybe it's about us really digging down and finding out how much compassion do I really have for this world. Doing something about it. Not saying, oh, Leanne's needs to do a better job of this, right? It's always, oh, Cindy's got to do a better job of this. I'm doing just fine. Well, maybe looking within is going to be the thing that's most important. So, my friends, I pray that each and every one of you takes the time every day to determine what is being asked of you. Maybe not what you need to ask of God, but what is being asked of you. And yes, at times it's going to be very difficult. Very difficult. But you have a chance to change the world. And I invite you to do so. Starting today, starting now. Friends, if you're able, would you stand with me as we sing our next hymn?